I'd like to invite you to join me in the song that has become popular. It's originally from Israel. Please join me. Kol haolam kulo gesher tzar meod, gesher tzar meod, gesher tzar meod, kol haolam kulo gesher tzar meod, gesher tzar meod. V'ha'ikar lo lefached klal. V'ha'ikar lo lefached klal. This song tells us that the whole world is a very narrow bridge, but the most important thing is not to be afraid at all. This morning I'd like to compare what this song says with what the prayer we're about to say will say, Unatane Tokef. We'll compare Kol Haolam Kulo with Unatane Tokef. And as we'll hear in just a moment, right, Unatane Tokef describes all of the world's inhabitants passing before God like a flock of sheep. I imagine a very long line, a very narrow line, like a narrow bridge. And in the Unatane Tokef, we will come face to face with our mortality. We will read who will live and who will die, who by fire and who by water, who by hunger or who by thirst, who by earthquake or who by plague. When I think of the events of the last few weeks, I can't help but remind myself of this prayer. We do live on a very narrow bridge indeed. But the words of Rabbi Nachman, as well as the prayer of Unatane Tokef, do not end there. Rabbi Nachman tells us, V'ha'ikar lo lefached klal. The important thing is to not be afraid, even amidst the fragility of our lives. And similarly, we're going to see soon how Unatane Tokef equips us with some wonderful, wonderful spiritual tools to overcome the challenges that we face. But first, I'd like to share what Rabbi David Levincrus, quoting Rabbi Nachman's original words in the Likutei Moharan, what he says. He emphasizes that Rabbi Nachman's original intent was not actually to say, don't be afraid at all. His original words are, V'ha'ikar lo lehit pached klal. The most important thing is to not make yourself afraid at all. Notice the difference, right? Just one or two Hebrew letters speaks volumes. It's a difference between do not be afraid and do not make yourself afraid. Rabbi Nachman, as Rabbi Levincrus notes, is not telling us never to fear. We know that fear, like all human emotions, has an important purpose in our lives. Without fear, right, we may jump into an oncoming car. The fear that we feel keeps us from falling off that bridge. But what Rabbi Nachman is telling us is to not make ourselves overly afraid, to not let the fears and the doubts and the anxieties in our lives dictate our lives. He is encouraging us to be brave, which, in my opinion, the best definition of brave is to feel fear and to do it anyway. Facing fear is a major theme on this Rosh Hashanah and on these high holidays, even as we look ahead to the new year with hope. And this is epitomized from a phrase in our liturgy, Hayom Harat Olam. Today the world was born. But more precisely, harat, like the Hebrew word herayon, means pregnant. So more precisely, the phrase Hayom Harat Olam means today the world is in gestation. Today the world is waiting. Today the world is ready to be born. Today is the day of potential as our new world, as our new year stands ready to be born. But this birth, like all births, comes with its share of risks and even of fear. Rabbi Tali Adler writes, "This phrase, Hayom Harat Olam, paired as it is with the shofar's cries, evokes feelings of vulnerability and the fear of the unknown, represented by the ever-present danger of miscarriage." She continues, "Even in today's reality, pregnancy and birth are fraught with mixed emotions, with fear and danger, as well as joy and possibility." Rabbi Adler calls our attention to the experience of our foremother Sarah, whose story we read yesterday morning in the Torah. Sarah conceived a child at the age of 90, and Rabbi Adler, in a contemporary midrash, imagined Sarah and her entire nation desperately praying for her life and for the life of her baby, given the dangers of pregnancy in ancient times, especially for a woman as old as her. Birth brings up many emotions, and Rabbi Adler reminds us that it's important to recognize that today as well, many in our society face infertility, as well as the dangers of infant mortality and postpartum depression. But even so, even with these anxieties and risks, birth is worth it. We face these fears together as a community to bring about new life. And as the baby and as the parents cross the bridge of birth, new joy enters into the world. As our new year is born, we also may face this jumble of emotions, joy and excitement for what the year may bring, as well perhaps as fear and anxiety, but also hope. Rosh Hashanah creates a space for us to process all of these emotions and more, to face them together, to perhaps, yes, feel afraid as we walk across a narrow bridge, but also to find the courage to cross to the other side. These high holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, embolden us with this courage in three ways. These three are summarized in the last half of Unatane Tokef, the part of the prayer that transitions from the fears that we fear the year may bring to the three actions that we can take in response: teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah. The prayer proclaims that these three actions transform the evil of the decree. What does this mean, to transform the evil of the decree? Will these three actions, teshuvah, return, tefillah, prayer, tzedakah, charity, will these actually change our fate? What we may face in the world, forest fires, hurricanes, plagues, these are real. They may not disappear no matter how much we pray or give to charity. But engaging in these three actions dwindles and diminishes the evil from the decrees we may face. These three actions allow us to cope with and overcome the challenges and the dangers that we face. The bridge does remain narrow, but we are able to cross it together. Let's talk about how each of these three do this. Teshuvah means return. It is return to our best selves. By activating the best of our capabilities, we are better able to face the challenges that the year may bring. Tefillah means prayer. By turning to God, to a force that is beyond us, that loves and that cares for us, we gain the courage to face our fears. Rabbi Avi Killip quotes the Babylonian Talmud, Avodah Zarah, to compare, on the one hand, a flesh and blood king with God, who is the ruler of the universe. A flesh and blood king, where do they live? They live inside of a castle with all of their servants and guards outside to protect them. God, on the other hand, dwells outside. God dwells outside and encircles and protects us, God's servants, who dwell inside. God envelops and guards us as a mother envelops her child. Our prayers, our tefillah on this day, elicit this feeling of God's sovereignty, of God's loving care for us. And lastly, tzedakah. Tzedakah represents the ways that we care for one another. These enable us to face the challenges that life will send our way. we will help one another cross that bridge, and doing so together will make us feel less afraid. With teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah, we can look ahead with hope toward our new year. The Jerusalem Talmud describes how as we await our decree from God, we wear white, we eat, we drink, and we rejoice, for we have faith that the Holy Blessed One will work miracles for us. Together, with God and with one another, we can make our new year a Shana Tova U'Mitukah, a sweet and good new year. We wish one another this wish, and in so doing, we pledge to transform it from a wish into reality. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, the whole wide world is a very narrow bridge, but together we will enable ourselves, lo lehipached klal, to enable ourselves to feel less afraid, to be brave, and to cross that bridge together to a joyous and a sweet new year. Shana Tova U'Mitukah, may we have a good, sweet year for all of us.